All right, perfect. We're live. Giselle, what's going on?
How's it going, G? It's a little wet today.
I know, a little wet. The weather definitely calmed down too, so
Well, hopefully it stays like that. It was raining and then not raining and then raining and
I know I was thinking the other day, like we just have it so good here. The summers are the best.
yeah. So full disclosure, I golfed 9 holes this morning, and got completely rained on. So I tried to beat the rain, thinking 1 o'clock it'd start raining. Nope, it started raining around like 8:39. So it's not that fun in the rain, but
Probably right on hole 4 or 5 for you.
yeah, your clubs are all wet, you're all wet, the game's not as fun anymore. You're like, hey, that's it,
Absolutely.
we're done.
Absolutely. Yeah, so Giselle and I wanted to come on here and basically just talk about obviously the announcement that came forward this morning through the Bank of Canada. Absolutely. I don't know. Did you think it was going that high?
I don't think anyone really thought it was going to go that high. I think speculation was, 0.75. For them to go a whole 100 basis points is a lot. But, some of these things are out of our control, and we just have to kind of accept what they decide and kind of, move on from there and really help clients and help people still get into homes. And I think the biggest thing is the news kind of makes people freak out, right? Like it's big
Oh yeah.
headlines, it's all over the news today, right? It's all over your Apple News, or, I've gotten CNN and a couple other things that have come out about it, right? And it's really, how do you deal with the news that they gave you, right? How do you move forward? I think a lot of people have some questions. I know you have some questions for me today as well, that people, put in the Instagram live. But, the biggest thing is, the world still goes on, right? Breathe.
Absolutely.
Don't freak out, right? And just kind of talk to an expert. And that's really the biggest thing, is everyone's situation is different, right? So, I can come on here and, talk about different things, but your physical situation for yourself and what your finances are is going to be completely different than everybody else's, right? So really talk to an expert,
Absolutely.
sit down in front of somebody and, breathe and, work through it together, right?
Yeah, and that's just it, right? Like everyone's situation is so different. And I try to get people to see the opportunity that's presented in situations like this because like yeah, obviously interest rates going up is going to slow things down a little and it will affect home prices. We can't argue against that, but I tell my buyers, this is the best time that you've had in 2 years. You haven't had opportunities like this where you could actually negotiate with sellers.
Mhm.
So it provides them an excellent opportunity. And for sellers, it's not like they're gonna have to completely let go of their house for a terrible price. The market's still competitive. It's just not what it was.
Well, and I think that's what people really need to realize, right? What your neighbor sold their house for in January is not what you're going to sell your house for today, right? Things have changed. You're the perfect person to tell us, what the market's done in the past month, right?
Mhm.
Well, I've seen it slow down on my end, so I'm sure you've seen it, slow down a bit on your end as well, right? You're seeing more listings. If we go back 2 years ago, there you couldn't even find a house,
Yeah.
right?
Ab-
Now
ab- yeah,
it's
absolutely. Like
the
June
other
was a
spectrum.
record-setting month for the past 2 years. Like 1,600 and something listings came on the market, and uh, before back in February there was only a couple hundred. So I mean, for that many listings, like nearly triple, and even the canceled expired withdrawals, it's just showing there's a big shift. But like I said, that provides opportunity, and you have to be there to seize it. So
Well, and I think the biggest thing that I, want to tell people is, this is a slow down period, right? You're pausing, you're taking a second. I feel like people jumped into too many things during the pandemic, right? You didn't, you're like, oh my God, this is the only house in the market. I have to get
Mhm.
it, right? You didn't really, this is the time where you're picky and choosy, right?
Absolutely.
If there's something that you don't like about the house, there's always going to be another house,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
And this is the biggest investment of your life. This is not a pair of jeans that you can return in the store in 14 days, if you don't like the way it fits, right? This
Yeah.
is, your largest purchase, and you're going to have to absolutely love it, right? So this is the time where, the only thing that you can really control is the purchase price and your monthly payment. We can't control interest rates. They are what they are. You know, everyone's shifting around the same, price point, right? It's not even the shopping around point anymore. It's these are the rates, they are over 5% on the fixed side, right? We know they're probably going to keep increasing, but what you can control is negotiation on what you're buying.
That's right.
So
And
there's pros and cons to both sides, right?
absolutely. So I'll get into the first question. Well, we've had a couple that were asked before the show, so we have them lined up, which is perfect. Like, what do you think about kind of variable versus fixed right now?
So from a rate perspective, people always look at, what the lowest rate is, right? And fixed versus variable is a situational based on the client, right? So I don't sit here and tell people, I'm pro fixed or pro variable, right? I give you the options and I explain, what your pros and cons are each, right? A fixed payment, you're going to know your payment every single month, right? You're going to know how much interest you're paying and how much principal you're paying for the next, term of your mortgage, or even 25 years, depending on how you amortize it, right? On the variable standpoint, what changes is the ratio aspect of how much principal and how much interest you're paying, right? And when we go towards more interest and less principal, it increases your amortization over time, right? So depending on what your cash flow looks like, depending on your risk tolerance, depending on, what your goals are in the next 5-10 years, right? Are you retiring soon? Or you're a first-time home buyer, right? First-time home buyers, they really like to know their payment, right? You don't want to carry a mortgage for 25 years, right? At the end of the day, you want to be mortgage free. That's the goal, and use your retirement savings money to retire off of, right? Not to pay off your mortgage. That's really the goal at the end of the day, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I like that you said it is unique to every situation, because like there's always products you kind of lean towards, but I like the fact that you look out for people and you really say like it's completely dependent upon what you want. If you tell me your goals, I'll put you in the right kind of mortgage.
Absolutely. So it's just, I find I can't sit there and tell people what to do. I can give you the advice and give you an educated, decision on how you should go about it, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the next question that came in beforehand was, so I'm pre-approved. What does this mean for me?
Well, I would definitely reach out to your financial institution or your mortgage specialist that you were pre-approved with. Typically, they lock you in for a rate for 120 days, right? So I'd find out what your rate commitment is, right? How long your rate is guaranteed for. I think the biggest thing that we're going to see right now, and that's just a big communication standpoint, is talking to your realtor, right? The mortgage specialist, the client, and the realtor all need to be on the same page, right? So if your rate expires and you've been locked in for 120 days and your rate's slowly expiring soon, and maybe you have to move up your closing, maybe this is the time where you can negotiate, right? If you're locked in at a rate of, let's say, 3.5 4.5%, for instance, right now all of a sudden rates are way higher than that, depending on what you've locked in at. That's a lot of money that you're leaving on the table, right? Your payment could change by a couple $100, or depending on what your purchase price is, right? And what your mortgage amount is, right? But that's what people really need to understand is what's that 120 days, right? Previously during, the pandemic, people were fine. Just re-rate commit me. It's not a big deal, right? Because rates were going down.
Yeah.
Now we're on the other side of the spectrum, right? So that 120 days, that number at the end of that 120 days is really important, because I've even had a couple clients close, way before. They're like, oh my God, I can't have my rate expire. I'm going to see if I can move up my closing date, right? And that's the thing. So just really being in communication with the team, right? And that's really that we all are, right? We're a big team trying to get you guys to close.
Yeah, we're all just trying to get the deal done together for the people, really. Yeah, I've seen some pretty unique things take place too. Like people who said, look, we're not going to be able to close in 90 days, but if we can close in 60 days, we'll rent it back to you, like the home. And then it kind of makes everything better. So people have to be a little bit flexible in these situations too. Like they can't be so fixed. And I mean, like, let's be honest, sellers got a little bit greedy during the pandemic there, and they're going to have to be a little bit flexible with the buyers now.
Well, and I think what we're also seeing is, before, people were buying and then selling their home, right?
Mhm.
Because it was easier to sell your home in less than a week, let's be honest, right? Than it was for you to find a house. Now we're on the other side of the spectrum, right? So I think now you're going back to, okay, we really need to look at selling a house first, because there's a lot of houses on the market, but our house may not be the one that's being sold right now, right? So if
Absolutely.
you have 60 days from when you signed it to when you're closing and your house doesn't close and you need that money for your down payment or you need that money to pay things off or whatever the case may be, right? That's where I feel like we're having a lot more people struggle is, what your realtor might have told you that you got 500 for your house, 2 months ago, you may only get 400, right? And if you're in a pinch and then someone offers you 370 and that's the only offer you get, you kind of have to take it, right? Your hands are kind of tied.
That's right. Yeah.
So I think a lot of people need to look at the process and kind of where they are. And that goes back to the communication and the team aspect, right? Is working together as a team. We're all on the same page. We all know what's going on, right? And you can't be greedy, I don't think, in this market anymore, right? What you're getting is kind of almost what you're getting, right? And I think, tell me if I'm wrong, on a marketing standpoint, people aren't listing it as low as they were before, right? I think kind of it's more what you're asking for, the asking price a little bit, right?
We've definitely seen that adjustment. We see some people try to do that, and then a lot of the time it's not working now because there's just not the demand there. With obviously the increased amount of supply, less demand per listing, so it's just not where it was, and then they'll relist at what they're expecting.
Well, and I think that's the biggest thing that I just feel really sad about, like a lot of my first time home buyers is during, the market when it was like that, right? Somebody would list something at $299 and it went for $600. Well, I get the phone call. Oh my God, Giselle, I think we found the house. Like I'm going to put an offer in. And I'm like, okay. I know it, the realtor knows it, but you're probably not going to get the house for $299, right?
I know. It's so hard to communicate that.
Now, I think it's a little bit more realistic, right? Whatever your purchase price is or whatever that price range that you have your pre-approval at, you do have a little bit more negotiation power, right? Because depending on what that person's situation is on the other side, they may want to sell that right away, right? They may need to sell it before they close to the next property, right? That domino effect.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially too, when there's not 10 people wanting the same house, you can definitely negotiate better. There's less power.
I think, when you talk to realtors and probably even yourself, right? That's the fun part about real estate is that negotiation, right? And telling your story and explaining, where your client is coming from and why they really want that house to build their family and the generational and just different things like that, right? Where I feel like during the pandemic, it was just very transactional. You didn't get to know your fellow realtors, right? That you were working with as much, right? You didn't present face-to-face offers anymore, right? You didn't really negotiate. They just picked whoever's the highest number at the table was, and that was
yeah. So I think overall the real estate game will get more fun. It'll definitely be more competitive, and you'll really get to see who has the skills and who's going to make them shine, as opposed to just who can write the biggest number on a piece of paper. Well,
I think it's going to provide. I don't want to say realtors had it really easy during the pandemic, but you had a listing, there wasn't that many listings on the market, right? You sold the house in a week, right? Now I think, we're seeing more open houses, right? We're seeing more videos, more marketing, more social media, right? I think that's kind of the way of the game that it's going to go in the future. But I think you're going to see that negotiation power come back to the table.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So next question here, Giselle. Should I wait or should I make a move now? So this one came in from a client existing. I know what I told him, but I would like to get your opinion on it just from a mortgage perspective, because his thought process is, well, apparently there is a recession looming in the background. There's no secret there. So his thought process is, should he wait till, September, November, or should he move now?
I think the biggest thing is be pre-approved. Find out what you can afford right now, right? Because what people were pre-approved in January isn't what you're going to be the same price point they're going to be pre-approved for now, right? The qualifying rate keeps changing with the Bank of Canada, right? So every time, the Bank of Canada changes their number on their standpoint, your pre-approval may change if it's not locked in, right? So definitely my first step would be get pre-approved, see what you can afford. We can lock you in for a rate for 120 days, right? So if you're, targeting more September, you're still fall under that 120 days, right? So I think that's the biggest step. It doesn't cost a client anything to be pre-approved. It's free. It's time, it's education. And I think that's the biggest message I want to kind of just pass to people right now is take a minute, take a pause. You don't have to run and jump into the market, right? You have to get, things in order, right? Make sure do you have a down payment? how's your credit? Are we working, right? What are the things that we have to do to get to that standpoint, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest thing, right? So it's not jumping in the market today. It's seeing, if all your ducks are in line, right? And then be picky and choosy on that property that you're looking at, right?
Yeah, let me ask you this one, Giselle. Do you mind when people reach out to you and they don't know, and necessarily maybe they won't get approved today for a mortgage, or pre-approved rather, but at least you get that ball rolling with them and you put them on the right track? You don't mind having those conversations with people, right?
Not at all. I think the earlier the better. I think there's things that they don't teach you in school. No one taught me what a credit bureau was. Nobody taught me how to pay my taxes. Nobody taught me how to purchase a home, right? Some of the fundamentals.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to educate people, right? This is the largest purchase of your life, and you're spending a lot of money every single month to pay for this, right? So you need to know what your money is going towards. You need to know, how much interest are you paying? How much principal are you paying? How long do I have to pay for this, right? What's a term? What's an amortization? And I think the process gets very overwhelming. And it's okay. You don't have to know everything. That's not, you don't have to pretend. There's no wrong question. There's no wrong, it's an open space to have that conversation. And we don't have to pull numbers. We don't have to pull a credit bureau or anything like that. It's just, let's start, see if, do you have a down payment saved, right? If you don't, let's start.
The very simple thing.
Because I think when people think they're ready to buy, they're not. So, if someone comes into me and says, yep, I'm ready to buy a house, and they don't have a job, or they have student debt or a car loan or whatever the case may be, right? Bruce credit, or not even have a job. They just might have started a brand new job. Do you know you have to have a 90-day probation period before you can actually start looking, right? Yeah. It's just little things that to you and I are common sense and that we deal with every day, right? But for the average consumer, they don't know, right?
That's why we have these too, right? We just to educate people, because they don't know. And it's even simple little nuances too, like just getting your credit score up a bit could get you a better rate.
And what's the difference between putting 5% versus 20? What's the difference between an amortization, right? Or, a term, right? People think, oh, my mortgage is 25 years. No, your amortization is 25 years. Your term is 5 years, 2 years, whatever you picked, right? Yeah. So, whether you're with a different institution or you're with RBC or whatever, pick up the phone and ask. I do not mind. I've had clients before that, dealt with other lenders. That's where they are. And my advice to them was, hey, you have a great rate. You're closing in less than a month. I can't beat the rate. If you have any questions moving forward, let me know, right? And it's just being honest with people.
Just having those simple conversations that can move the ball. So if you have any questions or you're hesitant to ever know anything, it's always just best to reach out. Like, don't waste your time Googling it. Just reach out to Giselle if it's about mortgages, and me if it's about real estate. I guess that's
for you, right? Like,
oh yeah.
People don't know much about real estate or the market rate. And I think the biggest thing is, they're like, oh, well, I don't need a realtor because I'll just find it online, right? Like, or conception for buying, right? Like, oh, there's too much money, I can't afford them.
No, I get that fully too. And especially on the buying end, people don't always understand. They're like, so when do I pay you the commission? I'm like, no, you don't understand this. That comes out of the seller's portion of the deal for a finder's fee for the buyer's agent. And people don't understand that even. So it's just fairly simple concepts, just getting the conversation. You're right. I really like that you said that, Giselle.
So, my service is free. Gianni's service is free. At the end of the day, just ask the questions, right? It's way easier to ask an expert than it is to try and Google your situation. Pick up the phone, say, hey, this is kind of my scenario. What do you think? Can we set up a meeting? Can we review it further, right? Or, this is kind of what I'm thinking. Yep. Okay, give it 6 months. We'll revisit it then, right? So by all means, reach out to us. That's why we're here. We're experts in our field. We don't expect you to be experts, right? Mm-hmm. You're experts in your own field. So that's why we're here, just to help you.
Absolutely. Okay, Giselle, next question here. This is a hard one to answer because it's so dependent on your situation. Someone asked me, how much will this affect my mortgage?
So it's very situational. Every lender does variable a little bit differently. So I think that's the first thing that you really need to understand, right? So some places and some institutions, your payment will actually physically change. Other institutions, the payment will stay the same, but your ratio on what you're paying for principal versus interest will change, right? So it's finding out exactly what that looks like, right? A lot of people are going to realize it on the line of credit standpoint, right? So if you have a HELOC or a revolving line of credit that's attached to your home, you're going to see that interest rate really increase, right? And if you're paying interest only, that interest is definitely going to go up, right? So I think reach out to your lender if you currently have a mortgage, find out exactly how they do their variable and really what will change for them, or for yourself, I should say. But it is a situational. It's hard to give, a lot of these questions, it's hard to give exact advice because every situation's different, right? So how long do you have left on your mortgage, right? Are you planning on moving, right? Are you planning on, what are your goals for the next few years, right? So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, I'll move on to the next one. Someone asked, is it a good time to sell? I could take this one, Giselle.
Yeah, I was going to say, how about we ask the realtor? Gianni, is it a good time to sell right now?
Yeah, it's actually a great time to sell. I'm still very bullish on it is a seller's market when we looked at the absorption rate in June. So that's the total number of listings on the market. Or sorry, the total number of sales divided by the total number of listings. It was 23%. So anything above 20 is a seller's market. Back in February, it was probably closer to 40%, but 23%. Pardon?
It's dropped by half on a percentage standpoint.
Yeah, so it's dropped by half, but it's still a seller's market. It's still, 3% into a seller's market, which is great. It shows you that inventory is still coming on the market and moving off of the market very fast. Months of inventory was 3 last month. And that shows you too that inventory it's not like it's at 6 months, which would be a strong buyer's market, right? So in short, it is a great time to sell. It's not the end of the world for a seller. It's just, you're going to have to be more reasonable and you're going to have to work with the realtor and the buyer. It's not going to be a greedy game anymore. It's going to be balanced. It's going to be fair. So
do you find during the past, let's say, couple years that, your client feels like they know a little bit more than you?
Yeah,
not trying to be rude, right? But I feel like, someone would be like, oh, well, I saw this, this house go for this price, right? That's how much I should get, right? But
yeah. So we have those situations all the time. I have those situations all the time. Like someone will see a house down their street. This one sold for 800. Mine's at least 850. But that one sold 4 months ago when interest rates were 2.5% lower. And inventory was 1/3 of what it is right now. And there was twice as many buyers. So it's like, you kind of have to run them through that whole process. And sometimes it is hard to explain because they're just so stuck in their head and you have to go with them. Like you have to list at their number to, obviously it's their house. They make the final decision. You can only guide them along the way.
Do you find like they come back to you and, something didn't work out the way they wanted and they're like, yeah, we should have listened to you to the beginning, but, we thought we knew more than you?
Yeah. It all depends on too, like some good scripting can always sway people another way. Like if someone really thinks their house is worth too much, you kind of just go over what they bought it for, how long ago, and then what did you do to the house? Well, you didn't do anything to the house. You bought it a year ago and now you want it to be worth 200 grand more. Do
you find also that it's sentimental value? Like they had kids in this house or they got married or it was their first home. So like,
certain instances, yes, but most people like seem to let go of their house more easily than you would think.
Yeah.
For me, my house is very sentimental. I have tons of memories in it, but for them, I don't know. Most people when they're ready to move, I think they've already went through the whole thought process and they're at the point where they're ready to let go.
I also feel like our generation, people move more.
Oh yeah.
Right? If you look at our parents or grandparents, they've been in their house. Like when you tell somebody like your amortization is 25 years, like they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to live here 25 years. That's fine. Right. Like I've moved 3-4 times already, like renting or purchasing or whatever the case may be. Right. But like, I'm only 28, right? Where you have some of these people, like I look at my grandparents, they've been in the house for sure 50 years. And
I know I have a listing coming up in Remington Park later this week. And Uh,
Just a little plug, Remington Park, anybody?
anyone looking for a house in Remington Park? 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, beautiful concrete pool in the rear. Reach out and we'll get you in there early. No, she's lived there 30 years. 30 years she's lived there and is perfectly happy with that.
Yeah.
It's just, I think it's the millennial mentality. Most of them aren't, well, before COVID, they weren't really motivated to own homes. And
Mhm.
now now that COVID's towards the end or over, whatever you want to call it, I saw a study come out that said millennials are actually finally buying homes. So
I think they are. I think it depends on really what part of Canada you are in, right?
yeah,
Obviously, there's some parts that are a little more expensive than others. I feel like
yeah,
there's probably a little bit more reasonable than some of the bigger cities. But I think the other thing is I find more people wanting to do like the condo life or the maintenance free, right?
yeah.
Where they have condo fees and they don't have to worry about their grass, right? They don't have to worry about, certain things. So I think that's, something that people need to, you know, I think that we'll see a little bit too.
I know. A thing too is I think in Windsor there was never really too many nice condos before. So to live in a condo was like a foreign concept to people. But since we've seen this increase in the price of housing and becoming unaffordable for a lot of people, we've seen this huge jump towards condos. I mean, there's probably a couple thousand units being built right now, with some of them honestly have great amenities, and it provides a pretty flexible lifestyle to people. Say you don't want to be there for the weekend, you don't have to get someone to watch your house, or if you want to go on a trip, you can just move, or not move. I mean, pack your bags and go.
You
Lock
don't
the
have to do
door.
snow removal. You don't have to worry about
Yeah, exactly.
the
So,
driveway.
okay, Giselle, got the next question for you here.
Yeah.
I bought a house a month ago and close in a month. What should I do now?
Well, fingers crossed you were already pre-approved. I hope.
Yeah.
If you are not, I would talk to myself or talk to your institution right away. But hopefully if you're closing in a month, I would follow up, make sure that you are approved, make sure that, all the documents are all ready. You don't have to provide anything else. I think the other thing that we're really going to be, going to probably see is appraisals, right? Appraisals we've never had issues with before. Prices are going down, right? So those last minute appraisals, if you've been sitting on your, agreement of purchase and sale for 3 months, might be a little bit different, right? So I think, sooner the better. Fast definitely beats slow. But hopefully you are with an institution already, and you just have to confirm and sign your documents. But if not, definitely reach out and give me a call.
Yeah. The next question, kind of funny. Someone asked, "Is the world ending?" So, I mean, I guess we'll just kind of translate that one into like, is the housing market crashing? Like, is it the end for housing? What do you think, Giselle?
I don't think the world's ending anytime soon. I don't think so. If it would have, I think it probably would have happened already. So we're coming out of a pandemic. So things are looking bright on that aspect. Do I think things are ending? No. Do I think the media puts a unique spin on things? Yes. Do I think they make people panic? For sure.
Absolutely.
I think that's where, you kind of need to break it down to what your situation is, right? You're not going to always follow the situation that the news provides, right? Everyone's situation is very unique to yourself, and to your finances, right? So unfortunately, or fortunately, we can't paint everyone with the same paintbrush, right?
No.
Everyone's at a different level. Everyone has different income streams. Everybody, has different down payments or investments, or, you might be adding with your brother or sister or a partner, or you're getting money gifted to you, right? So I think the biggest thing is just reach out so you don't have that anxiety, right? At the end of the day, this is supposed to be the most exciting time of your life. You are growing up, or you are moving to the next chapter of your life, right? And you're purchasing a home. It's not supposed to be stressful, right? So it's not supposed to feel like, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed, right?
Mhm.
Sit down, ask the questions you need to, right? Get educated, I think is the biggest thing. And talk to your expert, right? Sit down with Gianni, sit down with myself, right? We'll explain everything to you, right? You're not supposed to freak out. And I
No.
think that's the biggest thing, right? I think the news really scares people. And it's just take a pause, take a deep breath, and it's not ending. The world will keep going,
Yeah,
right?
sure will. Like,
If we look at, interest rates back in, even maybe our parents or grandparents, right? Their interest rates were like 20%. So when you talk to somebody back in the day, they're like, oh, that's still low. Don't worry about it, right? So if they survived and they've made it through and they're still standing, there's definitely hope for the rest of us.
yeah. Yeah. And like I said, I just want to highlight again, like rising interest rates, especially with the headlines that the media has been putting out, it's fear mongering. We know that's how the media is setting their numbers right now. That's how they're making their sales. Wouldn't be my choice, but if that's what they want to do, we have to roll with the punches. And if, like I said, someone is a buyer, it's a phenomenal opportunity. It hasn't been like this in 2 years for you. So if you've had your pre-approval done, you're in the home stretch now. Like, you're going to be able to get something you like. You're not going to feel like you overpaid for it because you're going to actually be able to negotiate for that home. Just keep going. You're in the home stretch. If you don't have your pre-approval, interest rates are still at a great rate.
They're not credit cards yet. They're not 20%. You're fine. No,
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is definitely, if you were pre-approved previously, definitely get it updated. Numbers did change, right? So what you were pre-approved for probably in January or even last year when you thought you couldn't get into the market, maybe you can. And the other thing is, like Gianni said, things are a little bit lower, right? So I think the average sale price, before was over 500, right? What person finishing school that has debt can afford something like that, right? So I think when we see the prices go down, I think it just gives our clients a better, opportunity to make that purchase. And at the end of the day, if you don't buy something in the next 120 days, you just pre-approve.
That's it.
At the end of the day, right? So stay on top of your pre-approval and your numbers, and definitely communicate that with your realtor, right?
Yeah. I even get people that say they're scared of, like, say they buy a house in 2 months at what are we? June, July, August, September 10th. And then the price goes down, I don't know, call it 2-3%. Okay, you're not selling your house tomorrow. Chances are you're going to live in that house for 10 years. Look, name me one instance in a 10-year time span that the housing prices have depreciated. They haven't. In a 10-year time span, housing prices has always gone up. And with
a house is not like the stock market, right? The stock market could, increase by 100 points and then decrease by 1,000, right? Every day it changes, right? So
yeah.
yes, historically we are seeing, month over month that it is decreasing, but I think on the same token, you're still safe. Your house isn't worth negative. Your house isn't worth zero, right? Your house might have gone down a bit, or it might have gone up during the pandemic, right? Depending on what side you're on. But I think also, like, most people that are getting into a home right now, right? It's not a flip, right? This isn't like a flip process where we're trying to make a quick extra buck right now, right?
Yeah.
This, you're staying here for goals or an investment property or whatever it is, right? This isn't making money quick and fast. That's not, the time frame right now.
That's right. And like I said, even if you are buying your house and prices do decrease a little, you're not selling it then. You're going to sell it in 10 years when it's up, probably another 20, 30, 50. Who knows how many percent it'll be up in 10 years, but it will be up.
If we knew that, I don't think we'd be sitting here right now.
Yeah. Anyways, Giselle, where can people find you if they want to reach out to you, ask you mortgage questions, or need some advice regarding anything, I guess, mortgage related?
Mortgage or bank related, absolutely. So I would say I'm one of the pretty easy persons to find on social media. So you can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, as well as I think I have Twitter too. And it's my mortgage girl, Giselle, or you can just find Giselle Lavasser. My branch is Tecumseh and Manning, so you can definitely find me around the Tecumseh area as well. And phone number is 519-999-0901. Feel free to text me, feel free to call me, or even send me an email. But I appreciate you inviting me. I had so much fun today.
Absolutely. Me as well. Yep. We should do this more often.
I like it. I was always the other person asking questions, so it was different on this side of the camera.
A little harder to get those questions flung your way.
But if anyone has any questions for myself or Gianni, absolutely reach out to us. We'd be happy to, talk about really anything you have, any questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Giselle. Have a great day.
Thanks. You guys